My dear brothers and sisters, I wish to welcome you to the 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Today we are talking about love. The scribes and the Pharisees came to Jesus asking him a very important question. In the Gospel, according to St. Mark, after Jesus defeated the Sadducees in their questions, the scribes and the Pharisees were happy with Jesus and they were congratulating him and also asking this question. But in the account of Matthew, which we are reading today, it was a trap and a test question. But when you love somebody, no matter how weak the person may be, no matter how the person comes to you, even with bad intention, you always love the person. That's what we see in Jesus, that Jesus took this opportunity to explain to us the summary of what the best and the first and the number one commandment is all about. Now, Jesus tells us today that the two commandments that summarize the commandments of God is the love of God and the love of neighbor. Of course, when you look at the 10 commandments, you will notice that number 1, number 2, number 3 speak basically about our relationship with God. That's what we call reverence to God. And from number 4 to number 10 speak to us about our interpersonal relationship, which we call respect. So dear brothers and sisters, the first summary that Jesus gave today, which is the love for God or the love of God. Actually, William Barclay will say that the response of Jesus to the scribes and the Pharisees today is the basic definition of religion, the love of God and the love of neighbor. Of course, Jesus' answer, he took it from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5, which forms part of the Shema, O Israel, which is like in the Catholic Church, what we call the creed, the I believe in God. Every Catholic is expected to memorize the I believe in God. In the same way, every Jew was expected to memorize this particular verse. It's basically an invitation to us to love God with all our heart. It is about loyalty to God. It's about a total obedience to God. It's about a total surrender to God. It's all about making God the number one in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions. It is basically a demonstration of our loyalty to God. How do we love God? We get to love God by getting to know Him, because knowledge is a union. No, just like in epistemology, we say that knowledge takes place when the knower and the known becomes one. When I look at you now, you don't need to enter inside my head, but the image of you is already in my head. So we are united somehow. So the way we love God is to get to know God. The way we love God is also what St. Paul tells us in the second reading today, faith in God. And that's why the opening prayer we have today says, God, increase our faith, our hope, and our charity, so that we may act according to your commands, that we may also obtain the promises you have given. So, dear brothers and sisters, we love God also by doing what we see in the responsorial psalm today, by recognizing God as our Father, as our refuge, our stronghold, our fortress, our foundation. We love God also by communicating with Him, talking to Him always, expressing ourselves to Him through prayers. We show our love to God by also reading the Bible, getting to know God. There's so many ways we show our love for God, listening to God every day. But basically, we also show our love for God by loving other people. That which means that we have to change our orientation. We begin to see the next person as the image of God. And this is what we see also in the response of Jesus when He says the second is like the first. Actually, you cannot love God without loving your neighbor, because the way we express our love for God is dependent on the way we love our neighbor. As John would say, how can you say you love God that you have not seen, and you hate your neighbor that you see every day? The best way to express our love for God is to love our neighbor. That's why Jesus quoted from Leviticus chapter 19, verse 16, 17, 18. And it tells us about how we should love other people. Basically, who is my neighbor? My neighbor is any human being created by God, especially those who are in need. Look at our first reading today from the book of Exodus. We see in practical terms what it means to love our neighbor and how to show our love for God. We must love the alien. We must treat the alien just like us because we were once aliens in Egypt, as God reminds us today. What about the widows, the orphans? If you lend money to someone, don't treat the person, don't act like an extortioner. Okay, don't put a lot of interest on that. And the fifth one, which the first reading mentions today, is about borrowing something. You borrow a cloak from someone, make sure you return that cloak before sunset because you need the person to also feel warm in the night. It's all about respect for the other person. It's all about seeing the next person as the image of God, irrespective of where we come from, irrespective of our race, our color, our religion, our belief, our culture, our tradition, our age, our financial status, our social status. What makes love possible is that when we begin to see the next person as the image of God, that I am not your color does not make you a lesser human being. It doesn't make me also a superior human being. But we are in different colors because that is the wisdom of God. My dear brothers and sisters, Jesus invites us today to love God and to love our neighbor. Remember what St. Paul says in the second reading today. We don't need to explain to anyone about you because the way you live your life in faith in God already is a lot of gospel. So dear brothers and sisters, let us, ask God today to endow us with the grace for this love, because sometimes it's difficult to love. But if we can really begin to open up ourselves to understand that the next person is also the image of God, just as we get inside the church, we genuflect, we bow, we kneel before Jesus, that same Jesus is also in the person who is poor, in that alien, in that orphan, in that widow, in the poor, in the lonely, in the abandoned, in the rejected, in those who are foreigners in your own country. Respect them, love them, do not discriminate against them, appreciate them, welcome them, accept them. We all bleed red blood. There's no one that bleeds white or green or black blood. All of us bleed red blood. And we must learn to love one another. So do not cheat other people. Don't cheat other people. Don't don't be an opportunist in order to cheat other people because you think you're wiser or you think you're stronger than them. Don't do that. It is not good. And also remember to respect other people, irrespective of their shortcomings and weaknesses. Remember what the first reading tells us. If the poor will cry out to me, I will also punish you. Which means that hate or hatred, wickedness, has its own punishment. Let us love. The more we love, the happier we shall become. But when we hate, we become more miserable. So dear brothers and sisters, as we continue today's celebration, let us ask the Holy Spirit to enkindle the fire of His love in our hearts, that we may begin to love God, and we may begin to love ourselves, and we may begin to love other people. Self-love is also very important because if you don't love yourself, you cannot even love other people. Those who do not love other people, they have not started loving themselves. That's why they cannot love other people. So love yourself and also express it in the way you love other people. I will tell God about you.